let's talk about dealing with frustrations as a data scientist, right? I have a very, very, small group of friends and peers, and they're all data scientists, right? And I know what you're going to think, a bunch of nerds. But some of them have actually changed jobs already twice this year. One of them actually 3 times. And this sparked a discussions between us as to why this happens. And their friends also change jobs a lot as data scientists. So even though the hiring rate of data scientists is quite high, the turnover for companies is also the same. First of all, let me just ask, any managers of data scientists in the room? Raise your hand. I need to change some jokes here and there when, okay, that's okay, I'll make it work, don't worry. Okay, so, first of all, working as a data scientist can sometimes be overwhelming. And I'm hoping by the end of the session you'll look like this guy. You can see I already kind of, this is R, this is Python, is already falling down. So I'm hoping that I'll get you into that position as well, at least mentally, for the frustrations that you have as data scientists. So I spoke with my friends and with some of my peers on LinkedIn and did this little survey of my own, asking like, what kind of frustrations do you have as a data scientist? What kind of things drive you to search for a job in a different place? Because let's be honest, the data scientist is going to be unemployed for 42 seconds and then find a different job. So they're on high demand, right? So that's not the problem. The problem is the frustrations that you end up having again and again and again. And there's a couple of topics that came out a lot in our discussions. Non-data science tasks. Sometimes as a data scientist, you will end up doing reporting. You'll end up doing data extraction. You'll end up doing ETL. You'll end up doing something that might not have anything to do with the data science at all or with advanced statistics. It might just be financial reporting because nobody else is there to do it and it needs to be done now. BI tasks, right? I mentioned ETL. Maybe you need to do a dashboard for somebody. You need to do some sort of whatever, diagram. That's also something that you might end up doing, and it might frustrate you because it takes you away from all your cool projects, all your cool algorithms, right? Chasing data sources, trying to figure out where the data is coming from, go and extract it from somewhere, build your own data lake, do some sort of stitching just to make it work. Data engineering, right? This is a very, very hot button for a lot of people who work in data science, that they have to do data engineering as well, not knowing that that actually is a position that somebody's job should be data engineering. Priorities change a lot. So even though you might work with a very cool project as a data scientist, they might get down prioritized. They might get killed. So your darlings might die. And that also creates frustrations if you work for 5 months on a very cool project and all of a sudden it just stays there and nobody uses it. And then there's no room for exploration. There's no room for proactivity. There's no room for doing any of this. And obviously this leads to frustration. Now, managers, close your eyes. Everybody else recognize yourselves in these kind of bullets? Raise your hands. Close your eyes. Thank you. Now, hands down. Managers, open your eyes. All right. So what is the secret in all of this? And I thought a lot, and I found the answer that I was looking for, or some sort of solution in a book that I didn't really expect to find it in. It's a very old book, and most of you are familiar with it. Regardless, you for sure heard of it. And it's the Bible. The law of averages, right? Specifically Galatians, and it says like this: be not deceived, God is not mocked. For we're data scientists in the room. Some are believers, some are not. So let me just, there. Now let's just, okay, wait. All right. Now just, either I make everyone happy or I've offended everybody. So it's a 50-50 chance. That's cool. That's good. I'm happy with that. So the reason why I found this quote and the parable behind it is the parable of the sowing and reaping, right? And you might be familiar with it, but you never thought about it, with the perspective of your own job as a data scientist, which I'm going to help you do now. And it has a lot to do with disciplining your disappointments. And it's a lot to do with how the world works in general. It doesn't matter which company you're in. So this is a story, right? There's two preconditions to the story. The story says that there was a sower, right, a farmer, and he was very ambitious. And he had good seed. In our case, good seed is good ideas, good projects, good attitude, right? So the first question is, are you ambitious? Question mark. Do you have good seed? That's a very weird question to ask. Good ideas, good attitude, good projects, okay? All right, whew. So the story goes like this. The farmer, the sower, keeps sowing, right? And some of the seeds go on the wayside and the birds get them. And in our case, birds are naysayers. Birds are people that say, oh, are you really going to do this? I mean, are you sure this is the best way to use your time? You're doing this algorithm or whatever. Shouldn't you focus on whatever else? I asked John to come to a meeting with me to discuss an opportunity of a new project, and he didn't show up. And I was so disappointed. And I thought, why didn't he show up? The birds. It was the birds. It was people that attract you and tell you, don't do that, because it's not for you, right? You're a data scientist. Do something else. Do this report that you need to do. So this is the thing. John didn't show up because the birds allowed to draw him. How can I change this? How can I make sure that the birds don't chase away these things? Well, I wouldn't take that class. Because you know what happens when you go and chase birds? You leave the field. So you have to understand that when birds, shoo away your ideas, or naysayers come into your life from your company, stakeholders, managers, whatever, even peers sometimes, it's not in your control, and you can't change anything about it, and it's not in your making. And the only thing you can do about this is you need to be aware of this happening, and you need to say, isn't that interesting? So let's say it together. We'll do this a couple of times today. So let's just say it together to get the habit going. Good habits take a little bit of discipline. So 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. All right. Incidentally, my version of this is a bit PG rated, so feel free to change it to whatever works for you. I couldn't actually use my version in here in these slides. Okay, so the birds got some of the seed. That's cool. So what did the farmer do? He kept on sowing because he understood the law of averages. He understood that eventually stuff will work, right? He was ambitious and he had good seed. So what happened next in the story is that some of the seeds fall on rocky ground. The plants start growing, but when the first heat wave comes, the rocks get hot and the plants die. And in this scenario for you, the rocks and the heat are actually big problems that happen in your company, right? All of a sudden, the house is burning. When the house is burning, you don't go and buy a new stove or TV. You put out the fire, right? So even though you're working on a very cool project and it's growing quite nicely, all of a sudden priorities shift because, maybe the company is in financial trouble. Maybe FDA is coming and you need to prepare some documentation and reports. And all of a sudden your project dies. John showed up to the meeting eventually. And after that, he didn't anymore. Stuff happened in his company and he didn't show up to my opportunity meetings. And I thought, how can I solve this? How can I keep John from coming and not being distracted by the heat? I wouldn't take that class either. It's just something that happens and some people leave. This is a mental note for you. Some people just leave. Some projects just die. And there's nothing you can do about it because it comes from up above. It's like summer coming after spring. It's like night coming after day. It's not in your control and there's nothing you can do about it. And some people ask, well, I want to change it. How can I change it? Well, when you get your own planet, you can change if night comes after day and summer comes after spring. But on this planet, this is the system that we have. This has been happening for thousands of years, and it's not ever becoming. It's not in your control. Sometimes things change on the fly, and you have to roll with it. It's the only way. So the only thing to do for mental sanity and frustration, because you might leave your company but end up having the same exact things over and over again, is to say, thank you so much. Coffee is on me after. Okay, so he kept on sowing, knowing now to discipline his disappointments. Last one. Seeds fell on thorny grounds. So again, the plants grew, the project gets bigger and bigger, right? But then the thorns suffocate the plants and they die. That's not a pretty thing to watch, really, to see your project die, suffocated by little things, right? So thorns, in this case, are little cares, little somethings, little emails, small distractions, small tickets you need to solve, small meetings you're getting gathered into, info meetings. They don't add value to you. You have to go. You have to stop what you're doing. And again, this is something that you have to be aware of. You can't really avoid it. You can't be the only one not going to the info meeting when the whole department leaves because you have a project. You have to go. John eventually showed up again to meetings, and then he stopped. And then I called him, you're coming back to meetings. How come you stopped coming again? Well, my garage door was a little bit wobbly, so I have to, the house is going to fall apart. Garbage is piling up behind the house. You have to take out your garbage. You can't leave it piling on. And the same way is like this. You have a lot of distractions. You have that pop-up from Outlook in the corner of your screen. It always takes away from your time, and it kills your project. It kills your creativity, and it's frustrating because you need to do a million other things except focusing on the thorns. So you need to understand that this is also part of life. Regardless of which company you're going to go to, you're going to have all of the above and then some. But what you can do is to be aware of them, is to know that they exist, and to just say, it's beautiful, it's like music to my ears. So, what he did is he kept on sowing. And now, seeds fell on good ground. But the story is not over yet. The good part is right now, actually. And because we're in a data science and stuff, I prepared some data to it, right? So don't worry. It fell on good ground. But the law of averages still applies, even though the seed falls on good ground. I personally had projects that were just a prototype and died. I had projects and good ideas that became proof of concept, and then they died. I had projects that became into production, and then they just got discontinued because other priorities happened. So in the same way, the farmer understands that even though the seed falls on good ground, some of that seed will yield 30%, some of that seed will yield 60%, some of the seed will yield 100%. And if a farmer knows this concept, I mean, it's fairly easy to understand that we should know it too in our daily life as data scientists, because some of your ideas are going to blossom into really cool projects, into production. Those are the really hard ones. Most of them will not yield 100%. Most of them will just end up being in a Jupyter notebook. I have like 5 of them just sitting in Jupyter notebooks in a notepad. They're ready to be put into production, but the priorities are different, and there's other projects that are more important, and the naysayers and the birds, and I sound like a crazy person, but you know what I mean. So understanding the law of averages is very important to deal with your frustrations, because some of the stuff is not in your control. The stuff that is in your control, if you messed up, or if you know it's in your power to do something, do it. Go ahead. Be ambitious, like the sower, and have good seeds. The important part that a farmer understands, and so should we, is that you have to keep on sowing. You have to keep on throwing seeds. If a tornado destroys the whole crop, the farmer doesn't give up. He starts again the next year. He doesn't just move to another farm. Storms and heat waves and tornadoes, they come everywhere. So the farmer understands that, just like as you should, if you sow an idea, a good idea, long enough, eventually it's going to land on good people. Somebody in your company will pick up that idea, and you're going to do that project. It's just a matter of being persistent, of being ambitious. It's a matter of disciplining your disappointments. And it isn't that interesting. So I'm not going to make you do it again, because that's ridiculous. So in conclusion, or let's just recap for now, keep being ambitious with good seeds. So keep having good ideas. Don't cling on to your darlings, you had this cool idea and then it got rejected by your manager. That's fine. There's plenty more where it comes from. You're smart people. You'll figure out something else. Or you can repackage it in some other way and then resell it. That's a good tip. Keep sowing and be aware of the birds, the rocks, and the thorns, right? So site tracking projects and activities that can be optimized. Naysayers and narrow-minded people, because there's a lot of those. My mentor that I've known many years now told me that, you know what, Adrian? There's probably about 10 evil people in the world. They travel a lot, so they move a lot, so odds are you're going to meet at least one in your life. But you have to have the comfort that, okay, there's only 9 more of you in the world, so I can deal with one evil person. So naysayers and narrow-minded people, don't mind them. Isn't that interesting? Worries and cares and priorities and small little distractions. These are all things that if you're aware of them and you can manage them yourself, you're going to be much better waking up in the morning and going to work, because you know that these stuff can happen. Now you're prepared to discipline your disappointments, talk to your manager. There's a lot of cool nuggets here from the managers as well, right? You need to set expectations with your data scientists. You need to talk with them and say, okay, what do you love to do the most? Because I have some other stuff here that needs to be done as well. So let's allocate maybe 50% of your time. Do whatever you love, and then let's do some ETL, let's do some other stuff, because we don't have enough headcount right now, or whatever the case may be. But a data scientist needs to have a very specific, very delimited time frame where he can do what he loves. Otherwise, he's going to leave. So worries, naysayers, site tracking projects, and people that are just dragging you from from the hands and legs. Eventually, your seals are going to yield, and some will do more than others. So even if your idea gets bought by upper management, that doesn't mean it's going to be in production. You need to be aware of that, and you need to be prepared psychologically that there's still a long road ahead of testing and prototyping, and you never know what's going to happen. So be prepared to keep saying like a crazy person, isn't that interesting? And then people don't understand why you say that. But eventually, some of them will work. You just need to be persistent. Doesn't matter if you change jobs, this will still apply. Even if you change industry and job completely, like career-wise, you're still going to meet these things in your life. And don't stress about things you can't control, right? This is self-explanatory. Take action towards the important seeds. So you need to be focused. You shouldn't go in all places. You are specialists, you're statisticians, and you know what you're good at. So focus on that more than anything else. Sure, help people if they need to, help them out with whatever tasks, but keep focusing that big chunk of time in your job to do what you love. Because that's how you wake up in the morning and go to a career and not to a job. That's the difference. And always remember the law of averages. That's pretty much it, to be honest. I have like 3 minutes left. I wanted to end up on a high note. So I thank you very much. I hope this made some sort of sense, and I'm not just like a maniac talking on stage for data science, and I'm talking about like therapy. Just I can't afford a therapist, so I'm just rambling about on stage. But I hope this made a little sense for you guys, and I hope you kind of got something out of this. The concept itself is a very old concept, but it really helped me a lot to understand how to navigate corporate life. The bigger the company, the more bureaucracy, the more decision making is going to happen, the more time it takes until you get access to data and all that kind of stuff. There's so many hoops you need to go through that you kind of need this armor to manage your frustrations and not just say, isn't that interesting? Or some variation of that that's more trivial. Thank you very much for your time and your attention and for attendance.